Back in the 90s, a couple named Mike and Claire had a dream that they wanted to make true. It wasn't easy. Both had addictions and struggles they had to fight through. But in the end, they got to channel Neil Diamond's music, where it's reaching out, touching you, touching me, and not just sweet Caroline, da da da. Neil Diamond's musicography was so much more, like songs sung blue once again, and many songs that still ring oh so true. Song Sung Blue is the latest film from filmmaker Craig Brewer. It would be weird if he wasn't a filmmaker, but somehow he was returning to film. It'd be really oddly worded there. But that being said, Song Sung Blue, you know, the one where Hugh Jackman was playing a Neil Diamond interpreter, not impersonator, because that's the way he wanted to put it, and Kate Hudson played his lovely wife Claire. This is based on a documentary by Greg Coes, and I was totally in the dark when it came to anything about this particular couple. I did know it was based on a documentary. I've not had a chance to see a documentary. It's streaming nowhere. So maybe this movie will be a hit and then the documentary will come out. So I'm completely in the dark about how much of this is a dramatization, how much of this is accurate, how much of this is real, how much of it is Memorex. But Craig Brewer, by the way, in case you're... Okay, I'm putting this down. That's getting very uncomfortable. So, he did Hustle and Flow. Who remembers Hustle and Flow? Are you old like me? I hope not. I hope you're all young and spry and able to move. He did Black Snake Moan. That was a movie that was certainly interesting. It did have Christina Ricci playing a nymphomaniac. Even in 2000, never mind, moving on. He did the 2011 Footloose, kick off your Sunday shoes and maybe go see the 1985 movie. He also did Coming to America, you know, the sequel that I think got put to Amazon that I actually didn't get around to. So we have Hugh Jackman, who plays Mike, who is a Vietnam vet, who has struggled with addiction. This is talked about in the opening of the movie, by the way, so... He's 20 years sober, and he loves music. In particular, he does love just, you know, channeling various artists, but he gets a chance to channel Neil Diamond, who does, by the way, have more of a discography than just Sweet Caroline. As great as that song is, as iconic as that song is, as somebody that only has a base knowledge of Neil Diamond's music, I know that he has more songs than that. But Hugh Jackman has a persona on stage that he calls Lightning, straight down to the lightning bolt. And he gathers around with a bunch of his friends. One that plays ooh-wee ooh, oh, he looks like Buddy Holly. There's no one there that looks like Mary Tyler Moore. Somebody that plays Barbra Streisand. Somebody that plays Little Richard, down to the very big coiffed hair. Oh, coiffed, I'm sorry, I always get that wrong. And there's even an Elvis guy. And during one of his performances, he basically ends up running into Claire, who is played by Kate Hudson. Terrifically by Kate Hudson, I might add, right there. And she is channeling Patsy Cline, who doesn't sing Stand By Your Man. By the way, in case my sister happens to be watching this, I am sorry that I couldn't channel how you do it. She'll know. She won't see this because she has better things to do, but... That's a deep cut. That is an in reference as far as how my sister sang Stand By Your Man. It was hilarious once our ears recovered. Love you, sis. Anyway, let's get back to this. So Kate Hudson's channeling Patsy Cline. They have whirlwind romance. They go through the trials and tribulations, the ups and downs, the all-arounds. Come on, cliches work. Because that is pretty much what this movie is. It is full of cliches. It is dramatization mixed with truth. And does end up actually mostly delivering on a lot of the great stuff to the point you are going to laugh, you are going to cry, which I did. I didn't expect to, and this actually ends up being a fairly surprising movie to close out the year. Is it one of the most surprising movies of the year? Well, no. I mean, it's better than I expected, but I thought it might be kind of good given the performances or the performers involved. Jim Belushi also is in this as their pseudo manager Tom. I'm going to be honest, I thought Jim Belushi died. I know John Belushi died early, but I thought Jim Belushi was dead too. He's fine in this. Really is about the chemistry between Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson. And we see the stuff that they went through and everything. Whether it did or didn't happen totally that way is subject to debate. For those who have seen the 2008 documentary, how much of this is wrong? How much of this is accurate? Because, I killed the Iron Claw, killed Queen of the Ring, killed a lot of this stuff that I know turns out to actually just be dramatization. So I'm sure there's stuff open to interpretation here. What isn't is that they thought this subject was good enough. Focus Features, I think, in particular, thought this was good enough to make into a movie that is certainly ready to be a crowd pleaser. So this was the AMC early access screening. I drove after work and decided, you know what, I'm tired, but I'm going to go watch it anyway. I could have waited to buy a ticket until the day of because there were 40 people there, maybe. It was one of those big spread out theaters with the recliner seats where, I'm not saying they need to jam people together, but I understand legroom, but I don't understand the luxury. The whole point is this features a lot of great Neil Diamond songs. It does feature Sweet Caroline. It does feature, since this is in the 90s, it does feature one particular band, a little bit of one particular band that I pop for, given where they're from, and also just the fact that gave me a boatload of nostalgia. It also gave me a reference that this was in the 90s, because I didn't fucking know. I mean, I knew there weren't cell phones. I could tell since it was a 2008 documentary. I'm like, all right, this at least is probably in the early 2000s or late 90s, and it turns out it's actually more like the mid 90s. And Hugh Jackman does play a terrific role here. There are a lot of good moments. I did like the two girls who played the daughters. I thought Ella Anderson as Rachel, who is the daughter of Claire, I thought she was fine. I swear I recognize her in something, but I can't think of what. And there's also a little boy that I thought that actor did pretty good. Well, to stand out to me, or at least somebody that I wanted to stand out a little bit more with their character, was King Princess, which is an actual name. I don't know what kind of name that is. Probably a stage name, a.k.a. Michaela Strauss, who apparently did music for the Bottom soundtrack. She plays Angelina. And I want to say right now, those two right there, this is 4. Those two right there, let me just do this math correctly. Those two young ladies, I think, can have a bright future. Because they did the most with their screen time. There are issues I have with this movie. There are things that just kind of are thrown at our face that I don't think were important to the narrative of the plot. I mean, yeah, they flesh out a couple more people. But then we just had something, and then we dropped it, and then we picked it back up for a little bit later for like a dramatic thing. And there are a few shocking moments, especially for those that don't know anything about this, especially one about 50 minutes to an hour in. I was like, oh, that's where the other shoe is going to drop. Ironic, given what happened. But I did like how it at least referenced addiction and depression and stuff like that and things that were going on and how people battle with that, going to your meetings, doing that and everything. And really what it is about music bringing people together. And really it doesn't get any better than this. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's that's probably a mild spoiler, maybe for those that don't know, but there is a part with Pearl Jam in this that I pop for. I pop for big because I like Pearl Jam's earlier stuff. And I just think, I think realistically Pearl Jam is one of those like bands that really needs to be talked about a whole lot more by people today. I mean, I think they're still making music. I'm not sure, but there are some hard hitting lines in this. Yeah, it may tug at your heartstrings in a cliched way, but it worked on me. Is it a bit too long? No, I just think there are parts of this that could have been trimmed a little bit, because it's just over 2 hours. And it is a love letter to Neil Diamond, also to this particular couple, that seemed to want to do good. They just wanted to make music, and they truly loved each other. Assuming, again, this isn't dramatized, and one wasn't abusing the goddamn other and didn't turn into the Benoit household. That being said, on that note, it's in theaters soon if you want to check it out. 3, 2, 1, spoilers. So, basically, Mike references a heart condition that he has had. We see an example of this when he's trying to get a mower started. He keeps yanking on. When you yank on too much, by the way, you are going to go blind. And that is a heart issue thing that, is a theme throughout this whole thing. Also, Claire's father, the father of the kids is out of the picture. And Mike's ex is out of the picture as well. His daughter references the fact she has a full-time place in Florida, but just comes up to see her dad here and there. And I mean, does love her dad, but he gets a little too focused on music. And I guess really my main issue with this is the stuff with the daughters was good, but it almost felt like window dressing for this. We don't find a lot out about Mike's daughter in particular, and maybe that's just because she was just a person who was there. We do see the whirlwind romance between Mike and Claire. It's very nice. It's very sweet. It seems genuine. And that is probably down to the chemistry of Hugh Jackman and Claire. And I did like the references to Don Ho. He was supposed to play Don Ho. And I just think of Track of the Moon Beast. And anybody that's an MST3K fan, you'll get that. But being that he was also a former, he's a veteran. He would every time he'd answer the phone, "As you were," and that I like that. I don't know why that simple line would pop me or I'd like that, but I did like that. And Jim Belushi as the the agent, the the booker, that kind of stuff. He was trying to do some good. Who knows? Maybe the real story is the guy ripped him off. I mean, I have no idea. But given what actually happened, or at least how this movie ends, well, maybe they didn't get a chance. Now things are going good. They're getting their act together. They're going to be known as Lightning and Thunder, and is their first gig at a leather bar, a bike bar. Doesn't go all that well, to the point. Even Jim Belushi gets in on punching a guy that helped book the venue. One guy says Neil Diamond sucks, so Hugh Jackman started getting in a fight with him. And his big plan was to have this gig go good. He was going to take her out to a buffet at this nice hotel suite, and he's going to propose to her. And he just blurts that out. And she says yes, it was sweet. Okay, it's silly, but... There are people, by the way, that I found compared the themes of this to The Ballad of Wallace Island. The Ballad of Wallace Island, by the way, stylistically and tone-wise, is a much different movie. It's also a much better movie than this. Not that Song Sung Blue is bad. I ended up enjoying this quite a bit. But they're totally different movies. So, basically, after that, things are going good. They're getting to where they are able to perform for Pearl Jam. Eddie Vedder, the lead singer of Pearl Jam, even gets up on stage and does a thing with him. There is a funny little thing though with Rachel, where she answers and she says, who's this? Some guy named Eddie. This Eddie, I don't know. And he's talking to him on the phone, and he's like, "What's a Pearl Jam?" And I don't know why that made me laugh, but it just did. That was funny, and the daughter's freaking out because the age she's supposed to be, and I think if I looked up, Ella Anderson is 21, something like that. So, for the role that she's playing, and I think she's supposed to be in her teens, she's obviously a huge Pearl Jam fan. They open for Pearl Jam. Eddie Vedder even gets out there and does a bit of a duet with them, or a triplet, or however it's said. And that was nice. It was for the daughter. He's like, "Hey, I got a favor. Could you do this?" And it's for who would become his stepdaughter, and she would end up relying on him when she went through something. Meanwhile, there are and when the daughters first meet, obviously, Mike's daughter mentions his depression from being a vet. He used to drink. He's obsessed with music, but maybe a bit too obsessed, but he's good. And he's been sober 20 years. And Claire, its reference, has pill addiction, and depression and stuff like that. Well, that gets put to the goddamn test because things seem to be going good. They got something booked And then and by the way, they're on this corner. This house is on this corner in and it's in Milwaukee. I can only imagine how this neighborhood would be in the in the winter. At least I assume the movie is filmed in Milwaukee. I don't know. A lot of the Midwest looks the same. This guy just barrels while she's gardening. She doesn't see him, and boom, and she's in the hospital and freaking out. And by the way, we then have in surgeries being done. Oh my God, this is terrible. And Hugh Jackman, or Mike, ends up having a heart issue and basically tells Rachel, hey, you're going to have to shock paddle me. Now, that might have been done for a dramatic effect, but it was jarring, that's for sure. And it turns out that Kate Hudson, Claire unfortunately pulled a Carrie Von Erich. Her left foot always better than the right one because the left foot isn't better than the right one because the right foot's still attached. I'm so sorry. Why do I work Carrie Von Erich jokes in there? So, she's got to learn to live with a prosthetic, do training, physical therapy. And even in the 90s when things were coming along better, still couldn't have been easy. But painkillers, that kind of stuff, days blend by. She was going to go do some physical therapy. And seamless transition. Great job with this scene, by the way. She's hearing knocking. Rachel, I told you this, give me a minute. It's her son. Dinner time. She slept the whole day away. Bills are piling up, by the way. They're curious how they're going to pay for all this stuff. That's my big thing about this movie. And I'm not saying they needed to give us like an itemized deal, but I'm like, okay. They're struggling. He's struggling with a mortgage. This kind of stuff. I assume that he just moved in with him because he lost the house, which his dentist sort of referenced. He was way behind on the mortgage. Oh, and the dentist that's like a friend of his also gave him a lightning logo in his tooth. That was interesting. It was kind of cool. But they also are opening with a song, Suleiman, is how it's said. Or at least as close as I can get. And it's definitely an interesting choice of the Neil Diamond songs. But cool, good stuff. And she has to learn to work with the prosthetics. She basically ends up having to go into rehab. Now, he actually had a beer, because every alcoholic, whatever, has like a lone beer to remind them what they used to be. Alcoholic drink of some variety. He had in his toolbox, and he's looking for something. He pours it out in the sink. Good for him. I wasn't sure if he was going to go back to that. And then she has to go to rehab. She wasn't sure why he would always go to his meetings. Angela ends up saying to him, hey, go to your meetings. I know you haven't been going that much. I know you're okay, but please go to your meetings. And there's also a scene where he opened up the movie at a meeting, singing a song. Very, very nice, and actually ties into the finish of this particular thing. And before Claire lost her leg, the son was doing some home movie stuff, some camcorder stuff. I know that type of camcorder because it looks shockingly like one of the ones we used to have. And then from there, she wants to get back into singing. And so things are going good, but clearly the stress of whatever Mike went through and stuff like that is starting to wear on him, because you saw the stuff with the mower, you saw the stuff with the shock paddles, and then he has a hard thing when he's getting ready for a show and hits his head. And the reason they're getting ready for a show is they're going to actually be the headlining act, a Neil Diamond, experience, instead in a Neil Diamond interpreter. And they're going to be at that show while Neil Diamond's performing at a bigger arena. They're at a more intimate theater. Kind of look like a Moore Theater. I mean, even though I know this is in Wisconsin. And which probably holds, I would say, about a couple thousand people, but that's a good thing, and it's going to be a big show. But now that he's hit his head, now it's all this, he is not doing well, but he's going to power through this show when he probably should have gotten that heart checked, but he couldn't afford the insurance. He wanted to do everything for his wife. And he would always say, are you good? Somebody would say, are you good? I'm huge, baby. And then, every... Well, I don't have to... I don't know what. I can't thank Neil because every thank I've got is, is because of you. Every thank goes to you. Yeah. Goes back to you. That's what I was trying to say. Sorry. So, everybody gets together to put on a good show. They get like a church choir, as somebody knows. They actually have a sold-out show. And he's even going to get to meet Neil. And everything's going good. They have a great performance. It looks like he's going to just have a heart issue on stage. He looks at his, two daughters, well, first daughter and stepdaughter, and powers through it. And I want to rewind here a little bit. One thing about Rachel, she ends up pregnant while trying to repair, or tells him while she's trying to repair her radiator. And what do you want to do with it? We've come up with this saying in, the military. It's, it's a saying, but it's like, sectioned off and everything. She wants to give it to a couple that can give it a good life. And she's already gone through that stuff. She's a smart kid. And she ends up actually, she doesn't know what to do without her mom. But knows that he means well because he's been there for her mom and wants her to get better. And then she comes back from rehab and all that stuff I talked about. But Claire helps get through Lamaze class. She has the kid, passes off the thing with the kid, or passes the kid off to the couple, and that's it. And I understand what they were doing, but I don't know. I guess it's kind of central to the plot, but you could have cut that out, and I really don't think it would have mattered. And no disrespect, Ella Anderson did a good job. But that being said, he's on stage. Looks like he's having a hard issue, but he powers through it, does the stuff, and then we're in the car going to the frozen custard stand, which because it says frozen custard up there. Are you good? I'm huge, baby. Gets out. She gets out first. That's the last fucking... The last fucking thing he said to her. Because, he died right there. Everybody's heartbroken. And all they can do is share memories. It was kind of funny, actually, that there was a part where she almost got hit by another car because some car ran into the same area she would have been in. She says lightning can strike twice in the same place. But so Mike's dead, and she wants to just do good. You feel for Mike's daughter. Fine. It got to a lot of people in the theaters. There weren't a ton of people there, but you could hear it. Anyway, she sings at the funeral and sings Neil Diamond's Once Again. You know the lyrics, you know the context, you know why that's going to hurt. And it was really good. And then we see the video that the son shot of him, saying to his, AA group, like, it's my 21st sober anniversary, about to get go on doing this, and sings a song, and yeah. There you go. Good stuff. It is emotional, maybe for the cliche reason, but it has so many parts that do work. You can't help but basically appreciate what you can't help but appreciate the good while letting the cliches just subside. So A-, really, really good stuff. It will tug at your heartstrings. I put up a review on Letterboxd, so yeah, there you go. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. Shit. I'm John Retlin, and until we revisit Neil Diamond's discography. God damn it. Sorry. Sweet Caroline, Once Again, Song Sung Blue. See you soon.